A billionaire on the brink. Screaming phones, shattered trust, layoffs looming like vultures. But in the shadows, a cleaning lady watched everything. No one knew her name. No one cared. Until one note, one simple truth exposed a secret that could destroy everything. And save it. Ask ChatGPT. The city outside was asleep, but floor 37 of the Langston Tower still glowed with artificial life. It was nearly midnight, and the only sounds were the low hum of electronics and the occasional echo of elevator doors opening and closing in the distance. At the far end of the floor, Daniel Langston sat slouched behind a glass desk. His suit jacket hung off the back of his chair like a ghost of better days. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled. His eyes, bloodshot and restless, darted between emails, numbers, and headlines he couldn't outrun. Langston AI bleeds millions in Q3. Can the golden boy recover? He clenched his jaw and pushed the laptop closed. The silence in the room was suffocating. Down the hallway, a cartwheel squeaked. Maria Alvarez moved slowly, like someone who didn't want to disturb the air. Her mop glided over the marble floor with practiced ease. She wore soft-soled shoes, the kind that didn't echo. Her uniform was neat, her bun held tight with a simple pin, and her face, though aged, was kind, calm. She passed open doors, glanced at the empty cubicles, then paused by the CEO's office. Through the glass wall, she saw Daniel's outline, shoulders slumped, face buried in one hand. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, quietly, she turned back toward her cart. Daniel didn't notice her, or maybe he did and chose not to. Either way, they didn't speak. But there was something in that silence, a tension. 5 minutes passed. Maria reached the far side of the floor, humming softly under her breath in Spanish, an old lullaby her mother used to sing. As she dusted a row of forgotten desks, she paused at one with a broken photo frame. The image inside showed a younger Daniel, arms around a team of bright-eyed developers, all smiles, all hope. She stared at it for a second longer than usual. "Used to be a nice place," she whispered to herself. "Now it's just heavy." She placed the frame face down, gently. Back in his office, Daniel stood up suddenly, shoving a pile of folders to the floor. The crash made Maria flinch. He pressed both palms to the glass, staring down at the empty streets below. His reflection, faint and tired, stared back. His voice, low and bitter, slipped through the wall. "They were right. I lost it. I lost everything." Maria looked up. Her lips parted like she might say something, but no words came. Instead, she pushed her cart forward, disappearing into the dim hallway. Somewhere between the silence, the mess, and the tension, something unseen passed between them. Not a conversation. Not yet, but a beginning. Maria Alvarez had always arrived after the noise died down. She liked it that way. Less conversation, fewer stares. People tended to look through you when you pushed a mop bucket. She preferred that. These were not her people. Engineers, executives, interns in $1,000 sneakers. But she watched them all. She always watched. That night, as she made her way through the dim corridors, she passed the office kitchen. Half-eaten sandwiches in the trash, 4 untouched coffee cups, a crumpled sticky note on the fridge. Reminder, all hands, 9 a.m., mandatory. Maria shook her head and started clearing the mess. Plastic lids, empty Red Bulls, smudged fingerprints on the counter. "Always working like machines," she muttered softly in Spanish, but still starving. Behind her, footsteps. She turned quickly, startled, But it was just Ava, the young intern who often stayed late, hoodie half-zipped, eyes red from crying. She opened the fridge, then stared at it blankly. Nothing inside. Maria said gently, "They feed you people? Or just drain your souls?" Ava let out a short, embarrassed laugh. "I think the second one." Maria handed her a banana from her own tote bag. "Eat this. You got a face like my niece when she forgets to sleep." Ava blinked, took it slowly. "Thanks, I'm fine." But Maria saw it. The way Ava didn't meet her eyes. The way her hand shook slightly as she peeled the fruit. "The boss yell again?" Maria asked softly. Ava hesitated, then nodded. "He's not himself anymore. He used to ask how I was doing. Now he doesn't even say good morning." There was a pause. The hum of the fridge filled the space. Maria nodded. "Hard to lead people when you forget they're human." By the time Ava left, Maria stood alone again in the silence. She made her way down the long hallway, row after row of sleek glass offices, empty now. At one point, she paused at a closed door. The nameplate read, "Thomas Reed, VP Strategy." Inside, she could just barely hear someone pacing. Muted phone call. The phrase, "I'm not covering for him anymore," slipped through the walls. Maria frowned. The building, once buzzing with optimism, now pulsed with tension, everyone walking on glass. And at the top of it all, Daniel Langston, brilliant, celebrated, and completely alone. Maria pushed open the janitor closet. Inside was her little world. A photo of her husband taped to the wall, smiling, arms wrapped around her, back when they used to clean office buildings together. He passed 6 years ago. Heart failure, right in the middle of a job. They had once dreamed of expanding, building something of their own. Maybe a small cleaning service with employees, contracts, maybe even a van with their name on it. But then came the paperwork they didn't understand. A financial mistake, a sudden lawsuit from a big-name client they couldn't fight. And just like that, it all vanished. She stayed quiet after that, worked, listened, kept her head down. Because speaking up had once cost her everything. She sat on a small stool for a moment, resting. Her eyes drifted toward Daniel's office again, still lit, still restless. "So much noise," she whispered, "and none of it says what needs to be said." Then she stood, tied her apron tighter, and returned to her work. Morning arrived without ceremony. Daniel Langston sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by half his executive team, and twice the tension. No one was eating the catered breakfast. No one was smiling. He stared at the quarterly numbers projected on the screen. They weren't just bad, they were humiliating. Reed, his VP of Strategy, cleared his throat. "We're going to need to cut at least 20% of the staff to stay liquid by next quarter." Daniel didn't flinch. His eyes were locked on one figure in the red. "Do it." A few heads turned. "You're sure?" asked Priya, head of HR. "No review, no—" "I said, do it," Daniel snapped. "We're bleeding, and we don't have time for gentle." The room fell into a strained silence. Reed rubbed his temples. Priya opened her mouth, then closed it. Daniel stood abruptly and left the room without another word. By early afternoon, the rumors had already started. Layoffs, entire departments getting wiped out, contracts canceled. A project manager cried quietly in the bathroom. Someone else rage quit over Slack. From her corner, Maria watched, not openly, but enough. She passed by cubicles where people once laughed. Now they barely spoke above a whisper. In the break room, she found torn-up papers in the trash, pieces of resignation letters, others with performance reviews marked pending, and scribbled across one in red ink, "Unreliable, not leadership material." Maria sighed. She'd seen this story before. Not in towers this tall, but in smaller offices, construction sites, family businesses. The panic, the silence, the fear, it always came the same way. Not with an explosion, but with pressure that cracked everything. That night, Daniel returned to his office. He loosened his tie, stared at the empty glass across the city skyline. Then he threw his phone against the wall. "Useless," he muttered. "Useless, all of them." Behind the glass wall, Maria continued cleaning quietly. He hadn't noticed her. Or maybe he had and didn't care. Hours later, she found herself back near his door. It was cracked open slightly. Inside, Daniel sat slumped in his chair, voice low. He was on the phone. "They think I'm falling apart," he said bitterly. "But none of them understand the pressure I'm under. None of them built this from scratch like I did." He paused, listened, then scoffed. "No, I'm not going to therapy. I don't need help. I need people to do their jobs." Click. The line went dead. Daniel sat in the dark, breathing hard, alone. Maria stood there for a moment, just outside, frozen. She knew that tone, that breaking point. She had heard it in her husband's voice the week they lost everything, when pride masked fear, when help felt like failure. And in that moment, a decision formed inside her. Not loud, not sudden, just there. For the first time in years, she took out a pen, tore a small piece of paper from the back of her schedule clipboard. She didn't overthink it. She just wrote. Maria's handwriting was steady, though her heart trembled with every word. It wasn't long, just a few lines. "You built something good, but you stopped listening. People don't follow numbers, they follow you. And lately, you've made it hard to believe. You can still fix this. Start by remembering who you were before the money." She stared at the note, her lips pressed tight, as if sealing in years of silence. Then she folded it gently, placed it in a plain envelope, and walked back toward Daniel's office. The door was still closed, but the light was on. Shadows moved inside. For a second, she stood there, decades of self-doubt swelling in her chest. What right did she have? She wasn't an executive. She wasn't strategic. She was just the cleaning lady. But then she remembered the photo of her and her husband, how they had once believed they could build something of their own, before pride, confusion, and a silence like this destroyed it. And so, with a breath that shook but didn't break, she slipped the note under the door and walked away. The next morning, Daniel found it. He was late, unshaven, and still burning from another brutal investor call. He nearly kicked the envelope aside on his way in. But something about it, plain, handwritten, almost humble, made him stop. He picked it up, turned it over. No name, no label. He opened it. Read once. Then again. Slower. Then again. Silence fell over the room. His eyes narrowed, then softened. The words weren't strategic advice. They weren't laced with business jargon or startup fluff. They were real, and they hurt. Because they were true. You stopped listening. That line rang in his ears, echoed back to moments. Ava crying in the hallway, Reed barely masking his exhaustion, Priya's hesitation in the meeting. He had stopped listening. He'd gotten so focused on saving the company that he'd forgotten why it was worth saving. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and for the first time in weeks, let the weight of it all settle. Downstairs, Maria was finishing up for the day. She didn't expect a reply. She didn't need one. She had done what she promised herself she'd never do again: speak, risk, interfere. And somewhere deep inside, the quietest part of her hoped, just maybe, it mattered. Daniel sat at his desk long after the sun rose, the envelope still open in front of him. He hadn't moved much, hadn't answered emails. He just stared at the note, at the skyline, at nothing. And then he did something he hadn't done in years. He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out an old photograph. A woman stood in it, mid-50s, brown uniform, tired eyes, but smiling with pride. Her hand rested gently on a young boy's shoulder. The boy, maybe 10, had a backpack that looked too heavy for his frame and eyes that hadn't yet learned to be ashamed. His mother. Daniel swallowed hard. The photo had been buried for years, not thrown away, just hidden. He remembered the late nights, how she'd come home smelling like bleach, with cracked hands and sore feet, but always asked about his day first. How she packed his lunch even when she barely ate herself. How she never complained, not once. She was a janitor for 32 years. And Daniel had spent most of his adult life pretending she wasn't. He rose suddenly from his chair and walked down the hall. Employees turned as he passed. Some whispered, others stared. In the break room, Ava sat alone, her laptop open, earbuds in. She looked up as he entered, eyes widened. She reached to pause her music, unsure. Daniel raised a hand, awkward but genuine. "Can I sit?" Ava blinked. Sure. He sat down, let the silence linger for a moment. Then, softly, "I haven't been fair to you. Or anyone, really." She didn't respond right away, just studied his face. He looked tired, but different, like something cracked open behind his eyes. "I forgot what it feels like to build something with people," he said, "not above them." Ava gave the smallest nod. "You didn't used to be like this." Daniel looked down. "I know." Then a pause, a question caught in his throat. Did someone leave me a note yesterday?" Ava shook her head. "Not me." She thought for a second. "Maybe Maria. She's sharper than most give her credit for." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah," he murmured. "Yeah, I think she is." That night, Daniel didn't stay late. He left at 6. No laptop, no briefcase. He rode the elevator to the ground floor and stepped into the parking garage. The janitor's supply closet light was still on. He walked toward it, heart thudding in his chest like a child about to confess. Maria stood there, sorting her supplies. Her back was to him. He cleared his throat gently. "Maria?" She turned, blinked. "Signor Langstay?" He hesitated. Can I talk to you for a minute?" She looked him in the eye. Steady, no fear, no flinch, just quiet grace. "I think," he said, "you've seen things no one else has, things I should have noticed." Maria folded her hands. Sometimes the truth is easier to hear from strangers. Daniel gave a small, weary smile. "I didn't expect it to come from someone so honest." "Most people don't," she replied. The next Monday, something felt different. There was no grand announcement, no email blast, but people noticed. Daniel came in early. No assistant, no entourage, just him, coffee in hand, walking from desk to desk. "Morning, Ava," he said with a soft smile. She blinked. "Morning, sir." He shook his head gently. Daniel's fine. He stopped by the design team, checked in with ops, not to pressure, just to listen. That same day, he called an impromptu meeting. No suits, no slide decks, just chairs in a circle like something out of a support group. Some rolled their eyes at first, but then he started speaking. "I lost the thread," Daniel admitted, voice low but steady. "Somewhere between funding rounds and Forbes articles, I stopped hearing the people who actually built this place." A few shifted in their seats. Others leaned in.